Hello and welcome to the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. This podcast is for you if you value not burning out. You're sick of it. You're sick of the stress and the exhaustion. You want your life back. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. This week is all about that holiday feeling. So for the past couple of years, it's been obviously quite difficult to take a holiday. And I've noticed that a lot of people seem to be away in August and September and have come back feeling really good, but then really struggling to keep that feeling. Like, how long is this feeling going to last? And why can't I have it all of the time? So I want you to imagine that whatever it is that you want from a holiday, that you can have that in your day-to-day life. Just start from that and notice what that feels like to you. Notice if relief comes up. Notice if utter disbelief comes back. Whatever it is for you, just notice. And then let's dive in. So just think of a holiday feeling. There could be many. But just think of what you have either recently experienced or what you long for in a holiday. And then once you've identified that feeling, you want to go a little bit deeper, get really into the body. What does that feel like in the body? Does that fill the heart? Is there a lot of kind of fun and joy and expansiveness? And just notice that. And then notice if that's kind of the opposite to what's going on in your day-to-day life. Because this is what the problem is, isn't it? This is what's so common. We live our life postponing that holiday feeling, postponing the expansive, heart-filling, joy-filled happiness, the ease in the body. We postpone it until the holiday. We postpone it through the working day, and then we postpone it to the weekend, and then we postpone it to holidays. Does this sound like you? Are you resonating with me here? So if I think of 2 holidays that really I should have been paying more attention to what they were signaling to me, but I was too overwhelmed, too really fixated on my career, and that wasn't all bad, don't get me wrong, huge satisfaction, that's why I was doing it, but there was just this huge imbalance. And so there's 2 holidays. One I have mentioned before, one's a cruise. And if you know me at all, I'm just not a cruise person, and that's not a criticism of cruises at all. It's just that we have to do what's right for us. And we went on this cruise together thinking, we can just we will be transported, so we won't have to do any tiring traveling because we're both utterly exhausted. We've been working really hard and we needed to reconnect and to rest. And so the idea of being transported from place to place just sounded wonderful. And also there's no housework. Somebody comes and cleans your room every day, and you get all your food. So there's nothing really to think about. There's that absence of stuff to do, the basic life maintenance. And there was even the absence of having to physically travel. And as we're both travelers more than holidaying people, that sounds like a good compromise. And here's the thing, isn't there? Compromising doesn't work because it was such a bad compromise. It just didn't work for us. We found it noisy. We found it impossible to find somewhere quiet where we could reconnect. There was no space for us. All we wanted to do was connect with each other, rest, and read. And we had a ton of books with us, and it was really, really difficult to find anywhere quiet to read because it was a cruise with a lot of structure and entertainment, and that's just not our thing. And it was also quite amusing because every time we went down to eat, they'd say, "Happy to share?" And we'd say, "No." And it took us most of the week, or a good few attempts, before we could say that, just like no, wholeheartedly. Introverts just want to catch up with each other, which is quite funny because, a lot of people want to meet people, and it's there's nothing wrong with a cruise. It's just, it's not for us. And we were literally the first people off. They sent out this thing saying if anybody wants early, disembarkation. I think you had to carry your own luggage. We were like, yeah, we're there. And there was only like a small number of people were allowed to do this because of how they organise it. And we were just queuing to get these tickets. So funny. So funny. And then we were delighted to get home. And when we got home, we found the ease that we had gone so far and at great expense to find. And that's really important to notice. only I didn't notice. What we did is we bonded over our hatred of the cruise, which was great. And we took good things from it, but, it really wasn't our thing. But what I really think we didn't do enough of is think, right, why is this happening? And it's difficult, isn't it? Because life changes and traveling's more of a kind of young person's game. Although I took my kids out of school when they were 13 and 11 and took them backpacking. So I was in my 30s and backpacking with 2 children. So, it's not necessary. I mean, I guess that's a lot younger than I am now. That's 20 years ago. But I guess I just had this expectation that as I got older, things would change, and that was just natural. And also I'm always willing to try things. So I tried it and it didn't work, and that's okay. But if I'd known what I know now, which is to pay more attention, particularly to the body and my heart, I could have learnt much more. For a start, I wouldn't have booked a cruise, because I would have realised that I was creating a life that just I didn't fit into, and that I was choosing to do something that just wasn't me. But I didn't know what I know now. And I'm really grateful that I do know now what I know, which is my practice of neutral noticing, that the body has so much to tell us. I was overusing my mind, and I did a lot of looking after my body, but it was a series of problems and improvements and hacking that was controlled by my mind. So my mind was testing different foods out to improve my diet. My mind was, I don't know, just like deciding the exercise. Everything was coming from the mind rather than from the body. I had a disconnection that I didn't even know about this stuff. And I knew some, I'd done yoga inconsistently and meditation and mindfulness. It wasn't like I didn't know anything, but I didn't really know that much about the mind-body connection. In fact, I was thinking about this the other day because I was talking to a close friend of mine who also did Open University psychology degree, and she remembered a different part of one of the courses than I did, and it had really impacted her. And I was like, I just don't really remember that, but I didn't remember it as well as her. Different bits are going to have different impacts on different people at different times, aren't they? But it reminded me of another part of the course that didn't really resonate or impact on me at the time. And I remember thinking it was really weird, because such a scientist, I really wanted to study people with scientific accuracy, which is hilarious because people are really, really hard to study scientifically, and apparently atoms are really hard as well. So of course people are even more complex. But anyway, there was a part of the course right at the end, and it mentioned the fact that what was lacking in psychology, or one of the things lacking in psychology as a discipline, was something called embodiment. And I remember thinking, well, I don't understand. It just didn't resonate. I was like, the word sounded foreign. Everything about it sounded weird. It sounded a bit hippie. It didn't sound very sciencey. I just rejected it. I was like, yeah, that's not a criticism that I was able to entertain at the time. Whereas now I'm like, ooh, so they were thinking about it then. And now, of course, that's what I have studied. That's what I work with. So that's kind of interesting to me that 20 years ago, that was not visible to me, which brings me back to this. You get what you focus on. So I just focused on the study of psychology, mainly in the mind, real deep intellectual, academic, rigorous study, and rejected anything that didn't fit into that. And yet now I've learned that what was missing was embodiment, was this mind-body connection, and that is so damn powerful. And that's brilliant, because now I'm so convinced, because I spent all of that time not respecting that, not following it. I wasn't even that curious about it. Whereas in the end, my body just woke me out of that rubbish by screaming at me. Literally screaming at me. I went through a lot of pain and illness, and kept going, kept pushing, and then eventually just burnt out. And I guess to me, burnout is that disconnection, complete disconnection between the body and the mind. It's when the mind is overriding all the signals from the body. So if we bring this back to the holiday feeling, to me, if you can just feel it in the body, you don't even have to analyze it. So is it for you a feeling of deep ease? So one of the things that I love about being on the beach, which, I grew up going to the beach all the time because I lived on an island, so it wasn't just a holiday thing, but it was definitely a fun, relaxing thing to do. And one of the things I love about the beach is that feeling, particularly earlier in the year when you're starting to thaw out from winter, but it really feels like the sun, the warmth from the sun soaks into my bones, and it's so energizing and healing and deeply, deeply relaxing right into the marrow of my bones, and then feeling the soft sand beneath me, and then this breeze, this beautiful, gentle, warm breeze, which is just drying the salt water from my skin, and the smells and the sensations of that, because I spent so much time as a child on a beach, or more than half my life I've spent, being close to the sea. That, for me, that is a real holiday feeling, that ease right deep inside me. And the wonderful smells, and it's just a very physical experience, I guess, for me, being on the beach. And that's when maybe I'm escaping from the load of rubbish going on in my head. The worst case scenario tryouts, just in case, in the middle of the night, just in case this terrible thing happens. Those loops of doom. They're just, I guess, for me, in that memory or that physical sensation of being at the beach, they go. And so that's one of the feelings. It's quite difficult to explain, isn't it? Because it is, by definition, a very physical feeling. But that's great, because I can use that in my day-to-day life. I can say, okay, I want that feeling now. What would that feel like? And I can do that with neutral noticing. So if you're one of my many listeners who regularly uses the 1 minute mark, and thank you if you have taken the time to let me know how you're using it, how it's going. I really, really appreciate it. And please tell other people about it, because I'm getting such good feedback of people using it in lots of different ways they're not necessarily using it in a way that they know what it's doing. It doesn't matter, it's just like, if it gets you out of your head into your body. I think generally what's happening is it's resetting the nervous system, but it's not designed to do that, which is great, because then you're not trying to do anything. It's just a break. It's enhancing that connection between the mind and the body, and allowing the body to reset, allowing the nervous system to move out of that high alert state all the time, and just moving the attention into the body. And doing that throughout your day, you can then decide, okay, so right now I'd really like to remember that feeling of ease of being on holiday. And if you've identified it in the body, it just becomes easier and easier to practice that. Now, that's a physical ease, and I think that's quite a common thing, isn't it? That unwinding, although often it takes the whole holiday to unwind. But there can be other things, and this is what's really important. If you've just had a holiday, or you're longing for a holiday, what is it that you want? Because identifying that and starting to practice that now is a huge benefit for you, because it's really, really useful information. So you're longing for a holiday, or you've just had a holiday, and it created the feeling that you crave, this longing to just have a break, to feel ease in the body, for the body to just unwind. That feeling is always available to you. Why? Well, because the mind doesn't know the difference between imaginary and real. So you can create that feeling, and the nervous system and the body will react as if it's true. Now, that's both brilliant and really annoying, because the annoying thing is that it takes practice to do that. So the annoying thing is that the mind has a cognitive bias towards negativity in order to keep you safe, which means it's going to constantly be bombarding you with warnings, plus the fact that we've set up our society so that everything's warnings, isn't it? I'm getting to a stage where I'm talking to myself in the car going, why is there a warning sign telling me? Like the other day, there's warning signs everywhere, right? And I personally find them slightly alarming because that's what they're designed to do, and then I have to say, oh, it's not a real warning, it's fine. And also really distracting, like I'm trying to drive and you're just like shouting at me with all of these signals, all this stuff to read. It's like, can I just drive sensibly? But anyway, there's a common sign, isn't there, that, and we have it on the A303, and it says, and I'm like, why does it say this? What reason to interrupt my driving concentration is there for this stupid sign? And it says, warning, incomplete barrier. Incomplete barrier. So what are you telling me? I don't know which barrier you mean. I'm assuming you mean the central barrier, which they've been replacing forever. And that's fine. I'm sure it's important. And that there's, engineers have worked out that it saves people's lives in a crash. Great, replace it. But don't warn me when it's incomplete. What are you telling me? It's incomplete. That means if you were thinking of crashing into that barrier, just be warned, in case you were thinking of suing us afterwards, that it's not quite complete. So it's not really suitable for you to crash into it. Like, there is no point, unless you're and that's the thing, isn't there? There's no point constantly alarming all our nervous systems, because it just makes people anxious and miserable. So stop doing it. Stop giving me so much damn information, because you know what? A lot of the information is to cover somebody else's arse. So I bet you anything, the reason it says the crash barrier is incomplete is not because you need to know it and it's adding to your safety of driving. It's in case you crashed, like as if crashing's on purpose. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise that wasn't the right place to accidentally nearly kill myself and somebody else. I mean, seriously, stop with the warning signs. They are everywhere, and they've been so deliberately increased in this fear campaign, the misuse of evidence-based psychology, whatever your feelings are about it, it has increased anxiety and misery. And personally, I don't consent to being in a psychological experience where the government gets to misuse evidence-based psychology to set off everybody's nervous systems into high alert. That manipulation of my behaviour through fear, I don't consent to that. And as a psychologist, you'd have to get consent. So there's something really wrong, fundamentally wrong for me about paying people to run a country in a way that decreases mental health. That I'm just really uncomfortable as a psychologist with that. But whether you think it was a good thing or not isn't my point. The point is the fear and anxiety warnings have increased dramatically during the COVID crisis. And so I guess there's more and more of them, and it's unhelpful, which means that to move away from that constant stress, anxiety, high alert state, which is just a natural, evolutionary, brilliant system designed to save your life, to keep resetting that takes effort, it takes practice. You have to be determined. You have to recognise that there are warning signs everywhere, like even reading the weather. I mean, don't get me started on the news, because now it's all about, oh, I don't even want to talk about the news. I'm going to stop reading any news again. That's my plan now, and it's addictive, because I noticed that I'm looking for soothing news. I'm looking for somebody to tell me it's over and we can all come out now. And it's pointless, because I'm not going to get it, because they're just replacing old alarmist headlines with new ones, because that's how the news works for lots of reasons, which I can't be bothered with. I've done a previous episode about why you shouldn't read the news or watch the news. There's lots of evidence-based psychology about this. I highly recommend you just don't read or listen or watch the news, because it's not good for you. And then you think, oh, well, what if there was an emergency thing? Well, do you know what? It filters through. Like, it's impossible to escape the news. It's also not the news. It's just some alarmist news. It's not the news as if there's this, like, the Earth publishes a general report of the state of the planet. It's not a scientific endeavour, is it? It sells newspapers and changes things, manipulates things, and there's lots of stuff going on. And if you want to be involved in that, that's your choice, but you're going to have to do even more stuff to reset your nervous system. So one of the first things you can do is realise there's lots of signals all the time, and that these impact your nervous system. And once you know that, you can choose to lessen them, and then you can choose to take care of yourself better. And one way to do that is to get out of the head into the body. You can use the 1 minute mark. Lots of people are using it and they love it. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's a lawyer, and he's using it between meetings because the meetings are so intense and you get about 5 or 6 minutes, and this is a 1 minute audio. Really, really helpful. Lots of reasons to use it. So the link for that is in the show notes. It's the 1 minute mark. You can get a copy for free and just start using it right now. And then once you're doing that, or you can do it without that, so you get out of your head into your body, feel your feet on the ground, allow the body to soften anywhere it wants to, and then you can remember the feeling of the holiday. You can invoke that in your body. And you can just do it for a minute or two and make it fun, make it really easy. Make it, so nice. So nice to feel the warmth of the sun on my back. It's so nice. Whatever it was for you. And this is why it's really important, because it's very personal. So another thing that can happen so the other holiday I was going to tell you about that should have been a red flag for me about how I was pushing against myself, really creating a life that just didn't work for me, is when we drove 7 hours to the south of Scotland and arrived like midnight, 1 a.m, to this freezing little house to escape from the stress of work. And I woke up the next morning and looked out on the most beautiful wild beach. So, so beautiful. And I could just breathe out. Really, I'm laughing now, but if you have to drive 7 hours to escape from your life, something's wrong, Heidi. Something's wrong. Probably need to do something else. It wasn't that I didn't know something was wrong, and I was doing things about it, to be fair. But it's a useful story to explain just how bad things got, despite all my knowledge and experience. It happens. It's normal. It's life. It's human. Don't beat yourself up, but do something about it. Do something about it. So for me, I think that was an escape. Yeah, that was purely an escape. That was like, let's run away. How far do I need to get away until my mind is empty of my worries? My mind is empty of my worries. And it's not always worries, is it? Sometimes it's just all the damn stuff to do. Like life admin is ridiculous, isn't it? Come on, life admin is crazy. We're all living in separate houses, which means that we all have everything to do. Whereas if we all lived in a tribe of 150, we'd all have separate things to do. Like never before in history, until recent history, have women been expected to stay at home with small children. That's where insanity lies. As much as you love your kids, it's really tough for one adult to be alone with small humans all day. Like, it's just crazy. And yeah, anyway, I think life admin is a whole nother episode. But identifying if it's easier for you to dump out, like just allow the to-do list and all the pressures to just not exist in your brain. I mean, they're probably still there, but if it's easier for you when you're on holiday to just put them to one side and say, no, not at the moment, thank you, I'm having a break, then notice that too. So what is it? Is it a permission thing? Are you giving yourself permission for this short amount of time to not deal with all of the stuff? And why is it that you can do that on holiday, but it's harder at home? And then what did it feel like in the body? How nice did it feel in the mind to have the mind a little bit emptier? And how can you practice that for just maybe like a minute or two a day? How could you practice that at home so you can have more of it? So to me, holidays give us really, really useful information. What we long for, whether we achieve it or not, because we don't always on holiday, do we? It can take weeks to unwind, and then the stress of getting there and getting back and all of that, especially at the moment, can just not really help. So, is it the different scenery? Is it the different routine? Is it different, more comfortable bed? Is it not having to cook? Is it, whatever it is for you, really thinking about that and that, and in respecting that longing. So what we tend to do is go, yeah, but you've had your holiday, you've got to wait, as if it's better to ration feelings of ease and happiness and joy. And that's crazy, right? Because you want more of that. I want more of that. I demand more of that nowadays. But it's hard. It's hard for me, and I've built my life and my business around walking this walk and talking to you every week about it. And even I find it difficult because my natural default setting is to get lots of work done and then I can rest. And yesterday I think I overworked and I thought I wasn't. And then I was aware that I was kind of overworking. And I thought, yeah, but I'll just get this done because I've got lots to do. I was really tired in the evening and then I didn't do much with my evening, and that's not how I want to be. So today I've got the stuff I really want to do, so I commit to recording this podcast on this day every week for you and to reach more people and for me, because this is my work. I love it. This brings me joy. And then there's masses and masses of other stuff that needs doing, and stuff that I'm excited about, and stuff that I could just literally hammer through or attempt to hammer through, but actually I wouldn't do it very well, and it's not how I've set my business up. So let's just be clear. Last week's episode really resonated with a lot of people because I was more vulnerable and I admitted that I'd been struggling myself, feeling really overwhelmed, and I had a tendency during my launch to push myself too hard, and I know that episode really resonated with people. So let's just be really, really clear. The reason that my business is set up for me to not overwork and to create a life that works for me, and to teach that and to discover and hone more and more tiny, easiest ways possible to help you and me, create lives that work for us. The reason for that is I had to deliberately put that structure into my business. And because I'm a person of integrity, that meant anytime I go back to my default pattern of overworking, I've got this enormous warning sign going, no, you can't. You can't, because then you're not being authentic. And so the fact that I actually put the structure into my business shows you just what a big problem I'd recognised it to be for myself. So never think that me or somebody else who seems to have like more answers than you, more calm than you. I mean, people often say to me, I have this Zen-like calm. And I think, okay, that's nice, because I don't think that's how people would have described me when I was burning out, although maybe they would have done, because I think I hid it really well. But I still have those default patterns of, I get really, really excited, to be fair. I just get really excited. I see opportunity everywhere and I tend to overwork. I want to get things done. I feel that life is short. So, I want to make the most of my life. And it's that passion and wanting the most out of my life that can lead me to an absolute disaster. So I know that about myself. So I set up the structures for it. What are you doing? Because if this sounds like you, then only you can start making a change about that. So only you can give yourself permission. So if when you go on holiday, that's the only time you get to really switch off, that's a permission thing, and I can't give you permission. You get to choose. And anytime you think you don't have a choice, that you have to work on the edge of burnout until you have a holiday, I'm going to argue that you're wrong, and that's exactly when you need to pause and have a rethink. Because surfing the verge of breakdown, living that close to burnout, I'm pretty sure that's not what you had in mind for your life. I'm pretty sure that the reason you worked really hard to be successful was so that you could have more ease and joy and fun and good stuff and feel really healthy and find it easy to connect with those you love, rather than finding it really, really difficult to hear what they're saying because your day is replaying in your mind and you can't really hear them. So yeah, you have a choice. You get to decide how much of the holiday feeling, how much of the ease and the joy and the just like, yay, life's brilliant, how much of that you get to experience in your life. That's a choice. It's a discipline, particularly at the beginning, but it gets easier. And how do I know this? Well, because it's getting easier for me, and also because, for example, people start with the 1 minute mark and they deliberately structure it into their lives because it's easier if you have the discipline. So setting a timer, putting post-it notes everywhere until you do it regularly. And then after a while, it becomes automatic and people do it without the audio. And that's genius, because then you can do it whenever you need it. Like, it just happens then, middle of the night, when you get back from work, lunchtime, whenever you're feeling tense, before you're feeling tense would be better for me. So when people start using it, they tend to use it to reverse something negative. But I highly recommend, and this is what we do inside Get Your Life Back, that you start using it like I'm suggesting in this podcast, where you start actually pulling in the positive, not just managing the negative. But that's more of an advanced practice. I've mentioned it briefly in the last half an hour. I hope that's helped. Basically, I'm saying you can hang on to that holiday feeling, but first you have to identify it, and then you have to practice feeling it regularly. Have a great week. To find out more about my tiny, huge, life-changing practices, please visit www.heidimark.co.uk.